Well, I'm going to say I'd like to bring people's attention back to a time when some strange things were happening in UK. What was happening? What was our government trying to do? We need to keep these things in our mind because it helps us understand the fact that we seem to be a nation state at the moment out of control and with a government that simply does as it likes. So this is back here, 2010. This document was actually published 2011, December, but it's the big society. So this was David Cameron's big plan. And there's a bit of comment that goes with this, which has come from Hansard, but we have Paul Flynn. I think we all greatly admire your work, Mr. Kruger, but the reality is that on the question of recidivism of drugs in prison, there has been no progress in 40 years. And we have a Home Secretary now who does not want to have revolutionary change. It's the language that I'm interested in this. And this one goes on until Danny Kruger is responding, and he says something which is quite strange. It's hard to think of him as a Maoist. Now, he's actually talking about Ken Clarke. And Danny Kruger goes on to say, yes, and I think that he's trying to do the right thing. If you're asking whether he's going to stay in his job, I have no idea. I've thought so, and I would hope so. I think he has the right agenda there. I do not think we should underestimate that we are talking about politics and personalities. The courage and resolution of David Cameron on this one means he's going to keep on pushing at it. And I think that Ken Clarke is going to stay in his job for, I hope, another year or two and implement this revolution. Well, if that doesn't seem to resonate with their audience, let's put up this next one, because now we've got big society in the Middle East. Could big society be both cause and cure of the Arab revolutions? And my point here is that we have agents of the British government buried into the heart of the Middle East with an agenda to change society to the benefit of whom? The local Arabs or even the Israelis? We simply don't know that because these people are working in the shadows. But that particular report that we had on screen, will just pop up this lady who was the researcher that actually put the document together. Now, she's done a lot of work with the UK government, but many other charities. And if you go to her particular website, the Researchery, she states that she's working with a whole lot of charities and funding bodies who seem to be involved in the game of social change. But of course, who decides what the change is and how it should actually come about? This is a very interesting question. These are some of the clients that she's had, and you can see the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport at the top. Pears Foundation, very interesting. Esme Fairburn. Who are these people? They're all deciding that society is going to be changed, including in the Middle East, but none of this is declared openly. This is a bit of text from the report itself. I won't dwell on this too long, but it says, while the beginnings of the Arab Spring youthquake were largely without widespread bloodshed, the current, beginning of May, situations in Libya and Syria show that there may be a long way to go in the region before levels of, quote, well-being and civic engagement in a big society sense are restored. As Michael Edwards has suggested, civil societies nascent during the times of mass protests and discontent tend to flare up and burn out quickly unless widespread security ensures relatively quickly. The world waits expectantly to see what will happen next. Well, it's very interesting that we're now seeing that what have we got of cauldron of violence and death in the Middle East. And clearly there has been a policy unleashed on the Middle East, which the bulk of the UK public is simply not aware of. And if we add to this, going back again, BBC Newsnight here, what influence did Ralph Miliband have on his sons? And if we do this pretty quickly, what it's pointing out is that he was proud to proclaim himself a Marxist. And it says, but he was, although he was a Marxist, he wasn't supporting Soviet dictatorships. And in crude terms, he was neither a Stalinist nor a Trotskyist. Miliband was convinced instead that progress would depend on activity outside Parliament through trade unions and other protest groups, liberating themselves through radical activity. And I'm just going to suggest I believe this is the undertone going on. He goes on to talk about his sons. And if I just bring that at the bottom of the screen, the Miliband boys were immersed in all this and began contributing from a precociously early age. And this was the photograph that went with the article. David and Ed Miliband, educated in Marxist ideology, promoters also of the Marxist Alinsky in New Labour doctrine. Well, if that was Labour, let's bring our minds back to this gentleman, Eric Pickles from the Conservative Party. The Guardian article here, still well worth reading. We are going to shake up the balance of power in this country. We are going to change the nature of the Constitution, be in no doubt about our commitment to localism. I know I look like an unlikely revolutionary, but the revolution starts here. And if indeed this man is a revolutionary, and I personally believe he is what he says he is, then of course the revolution doesn't just stay in UK, because the revolution will ultimately be the desire for a world revolution with all the violence that that entails. And here I'd just like to reflect an interesting email that came in. Hi, Brian. Some time ago, you mentioned 2 Tory party prospective candidates that have been dropped because they'd let slip the aim of the Tories in future years. And the person then said, look forward to seeing you at AV 13. But what were they referring to? Well, here's the first one. And this was from the UK column report on the 6th of March 2013. The Prime Minister and his deputy, Nick Clegg, want their people power revolution to unleash chaotic effects across local communities. Chaotic, therefore, in our vocabulary, he means the Conservative Party vocabulary, is a good thing. And the one that goes with this, because these emerged at the same time, is Danny Kruger. He was a Tory candidate at the time. The Conservatives plan to introduce a period of creative destruction in public services. I'm going to put to our audience today that the era of a true, trustworthy Conservative and Labour Party are over. We're in a unitary party status, and that party has globalist ambitions way outside the border of UK. And I believe that the violence that we're now seeing unleashed in the Middle East is part of the revolutionary plan. I'll leave you to reflect on that, on those comments.
Well, speaking of